Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. I'm your host, Bill, season ticket holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. In studio, Anthony Prohaska. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I really want to drink this drink. I'm very intrigued.
Guys, I'd like to drink this cocktail, this custom cocktail Chris made for me. But
it's already been watering down.
Now, while we sip it, here's what I want to say is, Anthony, first, let's taste it. Now, guys, you see it. It's in a glass. For those of you watching on YallTube, there's a lemon rind in it. There's a one giant cube. It looks citrusy, doesn't it?
Smells it too.
But like the look of it, is that bourbon?
I think I know what's in it. I don't want to say.
Okay. Well then, I believe there's bourbon, but all I can smell is lemon from the peel. So I guess we got to get in there.
I believe I smell Hawaiian punch.
Cheers, sir.
The green. Cheers.
Ooh.
That's delicious.
Okay, so there is a bourbon in there.
It tastes good and it's refreshing.
I just don't know what it is. Chris, what is this delightful cocktail? Because it's light on the palate with a heavy finish. It's almost like the inverse of most summer drinks, where it's fruity at the front, but then like heavy whiskey dark on the back. What is this?
It is a... It is a slight riff because we'll touch on it after dark. I went on a little bit of a road trip, but I did take a tour of where they do Hudson whiskey, and I picked up their rye whiskey that is finished in peated Scotch barrels.
That's the darkness.
And
that's the darkness.
I thought it would be a decent replacement in a penicillin. Penicillin is a blended Scotch, 3/4 ounce lemon, 3/4 ounce of a honey ginger syrup.
Of course.
So I wanted to give that a try. I got a sip of it, but I couldn't drink the whole thing because I had to go to the ER. So you were drinking the cocktail that I busted my hand on.
And this is going to be my question, Chris. You returned to the scene of the crime. Has the yips?
Wait.
Like, I'm shocked. Like, okay. So first of all,
I want to know what happened.
So before I ask my question, Chris, why don't you regale our listeners with your epic tale of woe?
Oh, okay. Well, went on a road trip, came back on Sunday, midday, unpacked everything, laundry, unpacked everything that we bought a bunch of bottles of whiskey. We had dinner, and it's like 6:30. All right, time to break one of these mothers open.
Oh, no.
And have a cocktail. So I went to make the exact cocktail that you guys are drinking.
Which is delicious, and I appreciate you.
And I got a Y peeler.
Oh, no.
And I put the lemon in my hand, and I went, and it got stuck.
Oh, no.
And then I went...
Yanked it,
yoked it. I have a missing piece of my ring finger.
You cut a chunk out?
Went through my nail bed.
Oh no!
Yeah. Yeah. Through my nail bed.
How the fuck do you cut your finger off with a fruit peeler?
Yeah. I was freaking out. So, like... Bro! Alright, yeah. You guys gave two different reactions. Like, Anthony genuinely concerned, like, oh, and Drew, it's like the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
You assaulted yourself with a fruit peeler. Like, that's a thing.
This was, okay, so...
It's one of the most rudimentary kitchen tools, Chris. The reason I'm laughing is because if there's a million things you could cut yourself with, there's a lot cleaner ways to do it. Like, if you cut your finger with a knife, I've laid myself open plenty of times. To cut yourself that badly with a fruit peeler?
You don't think that's realistic?
You must have really given that peel hell. You must have had some real...
Yeah, I had some torque on it.
The torque. You must have
had some torque on it. Dude.
Yeah, well, what... This is, like...
Oh,
if anybody out there that is either listening to this or watching this on YouTube and you're a single man, get yourself a nurse. Go find a nurse. Because, like, I don't do blood well at all.
Okay.
And
at
so,
Chris, the picture of yourself that you tweeted out on over at Rockpile Report on Twitter, the picture of yourself that you tweeted out, you look white like you were a stand-in. Remember when you were an extra in the Vampire Diaries back when you were like 16?
Fun fact.
I was in my mid-20s, but yeah.
Can I get a screenshot of that? My wife used to watch Vampire Diaries.
Yeah. I'm second to last episode of season 1.
Okay.
I'm the only white guy in a football jersey.
Okay. I'm 100% going to look it up like you think I'm going to.
So,
yeah, there was like a fall fair.
So here's the thing, guys. He looks like he could have been an extra as an actual vampire. Like, or like he could have been the stand-in for Twilight. He looks pale as shit.
Kicking him when he's down, man.
Yeah, well, let me get to the point here. So Jessica is calm as shit in that situation.
Because she's a nurse.
Okay. So she's like, all right, we'll go to urgent care. So we go to urgent care over on Ridge Road. And they have
that one.
Yeah, they're like appointment only or some bullshit like that. And they could see I'm bleeding through a ton of paper towels. So
sorry.
Yeah, I know. So we go in and I sit down and I'm like waiting for it's a physician's assistant that comes in.
Okay.
6:30 on a Sunday. She's way too peppy.
Okay.
She walks into the room and was like, "Hey, how are you guys?" I'm like, I go, you need to calm down.
Chris thinks he's fighting for his
30 on a Sunday.
You need to lower.
You need to look. I'm sitting here bleeding.
It's about a couple's retreat.
Yeah, and I got no fingernail. And so they take a look at it, and the damage was like I cut the chunk, and it was like hanging on a thread, and they're like,
real quick, you cut the chunk on the skin side or the nail side?
like the skin side.
Okay, copy.
Yeah. So they were like, we can't do that. So because
Like
we close in an hour and a half.
Wow.
So we went over to ECMC, which that's fun.
That's not great.
I spent
a little bit of a hike.
We got there at like 7:30 and we left at like 3:45 in the morning.
Fudge.
And I'll tell you this, I wish hospitals could also double as comedy clubs, because I murder in hospitals. Murder.
I wasn't expecting that.
I came out of the X-ray and then went back to the room, and then the doctor came back because I guess they wanted to make sure I didn't like go through any bone or anything. It was that bad. So they come back in after the X-ray, and I go, all right, who makes a better cut, me or OJ?
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
Guys,
yeah.
And they liked it?
Yeah, I got one.
He goes, I got one laugh.
I got a little laugh, and then Jessica goes, when did you think of that?
When did you think of that?
Yeah, I was like, in the bathroom. I thought of that.
I've been thinking about it since urgent care.
I've been thinking about it ever since we left.
Oh, yeah. And I got a...
Chris is over here spinning
I drive by that...
bits.
Yeah, right. I drive by that urgent care all the time. It used to be a Ponderosa, or next to a Ponderosa.
I like it. So we're...
It's right next to all those telephone wires.
Even before, so when I had to go get the X-ray on my finger, they, came in and they shot me up with an antibiotic and a tetanus shot.
Makes sense.
And so they jammed it into both arms, and because they get into the muscle.
Yeah, gotta get deep.
What muscle?
Yeah.
So she said, oh, nice.
Look at that.
Gun show.
Yeah.
You got
gun
permits
show.
for those?
Yes, I do. I get shot up.
Right wing all day.
And just my whole body goes numb. And then they're like, all right, let's go walk to the X-ray. And I'm like, I can't move. You guys just shot me up. So I'm shuffling down the hallway, and I'm like, God, I'm moving at the speed of our president.
Oh my God! Every episode, man.
I was just yelling in the common area, come on, man. Yeah, as I was going to get an X-ray. But I mean, we were there all night, and 2 days ago. I think it was yesterday. Jessica changed my bandage. I almost passed out.
Oh, God.
Like, I don't do...
Now, I'm not going to lie.
I don't do shit like that. Like, I'll pass the fuck... Like, we were doing it standing in the kitchen, and I almost fell over. And then
poor guy.
We changed it a second time, and I had to, like... All right, I'm going to go... I think it was last night. I'm going to lay in the bed... That way I'm already laying down when I pass out and
Smart.
you change this.
What's the timeline or like healing schedule? Like, what are you just supposed to leave it bandaged? Like, does anything have to be done? Like, I need to know how this comes to a conclusion.
So I think before I look at my left ring finger again, Josh Allen will have a touchdown pass.
Wow. Okay.
Like, I can't, it's a person, like, I can't look at it until it looks like 85%.
And it can get there though. It'll get close to back to what it used to be.
I hope so.
Okay.
I was going to ask. I go, now, are your ring and pointer finger going to be the same height? Like when you look at a normal person's hand, like, are they the same length?
I didn't even realize that.
I think it'll be shorter. I took a lot off the top.
I bet you did. So now here's, I guess I just, like, Chris, I look at you and I go, this is why we work, because we're two very different people. I spent my whole life seeing
Anthony seemed generally concerned 10 minutes ago.
I was concerned when I came in.
It's because I've seen a whole lot of shit. I've seen people get butt.
I've seen a lot of shit too. I just
have sympathy.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. What did I tell you?
Oh, that's true. Fair. What you told me the little
earlier,
offline.
I was telling him a story before we started podcasting about how my friend was high on laughing gas from getting his wisdom teeth removed, driving past a guy pulled over, getting like basically arrested on the side of the road, and his sister was like, "Oh, that looks like our friend Ben. Like, that's his car. It's the same. It almost looks like him, huh?" And Tony, the kid with the laughing gas, is crying laughing, and they go, "Why is that funny?" And he looks at his sister Olive, and he's on camera. Back in the days of like camera, like actual digital cameras, and goes, "It's always funny when bad things happen to your friends." like it's kind of true. Now, Chris, here's my question: were there any? And this kind of starts the conversation for tonight in terms of the Bills podcast that we're doing. Was there any hesitation when you got to the garnish this time? I see that you've peeled us these delicious lemon rinds.
I cut that with a knife.
About that.
You cut that with a knife. Okay, so you approached it differently because you didn't now you said
any trepidation here?
You threw that peeler out, right?
We have other peelers, but I did have PTSD.
Now this is because this is what I think about when I think about his injury and what he did making cocktails. I think about Takeo Spikes tearing his Achilles and admitting that he was not back to being 100% until he played for the Chargers. He goes, the year I came back for the Bills and played, I was not back. He goes, I was back physically, but mentally it was not there. So in my head, I go, does he have it in him to make a cocktail? Does he have the yips?
Fair question. Like Chuck Knobloch trying to...
Is he Mike Vanderjagt now? Like, he fucked one up, and now it's just going to derail his whole career?
You can't compare that to Mike Vanderjagt. That's like me doing the same thing, cutting a garnish, except I stabbed my leg. Like, not even close.
He's got to be a repeat offender to like be an official yips category. But I think it's fair to question the PSD. I legitimately wonder that, too. Like,
I questioned it tonight walking into this. I go, does Chris have it in him? Does he have it in him to make a cocktail?
I'm trying to think for myself here. Like, if I had done that, like, I don't think I'm going back to the fruit. And if someone was like, "Hey, man, can I get some lemon with this?" I'd be like, "You get the fuck out of my house." They'd be like, "Why are you so angry?" I'd be like, "Get out! Get out!" And then the wife is like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. You
shouldn't scream at people."
Yeah.
Well, it's Sunday, so like I had to work overtime on Wednesday, so I didn't have any. This is like the first time me drinking since the incident.
Oh my God, the incident.
Now here's a question: has there ever been a sports injury?
Like Ronnie
as
Lott.
we kind of weave this thing back into the Buffalo Bills, has there ever been an injury? Now, Tyler Dunn, plug your ears if you're listening to this, because we all know that I do care. Like, I care about these guys on a human level. I've always seen football like that because I grew up around football players, just as people. But has there ever been an injury where either the direct aftermath, like the whatever took place next, kind of made you chuckle? Like the way I laughed tonight about Chris's injury, Has there been one that made you laugh and you were just like, well, that was avoidable, but I guess not? Like, I think back to this last year's Jets game. Matt Milano comes in and lays one of the hardest hits I've ever seen on a quarterback.
Picture perfect textbook.
And
clean. And
everyone goes, that's a dirty hit. I go, no, that is the cleanest you can
fucking
hit.
Football, bro. It's a Goldberg spear right there.
It's the most violent hit you can deliver while not breaking the rules. Shatters the guy's ribs and then sends him packing. They put in Joe Flacco, who immediately fumbles the football.
Yeah.
Immediately on the next play fumbles the football.
No, I'm just...
That made me laugh. Chris, has there been a sports injury where immediately afterwards you're like, you snicker, you're like, it's not that I'm laughing about the injury, but I'm laughing about what unfolded next?
I can't think of one off the top of my head without being offensive, so...
I like how you phrased it.
Anthony, you got anything for me?
Not necessarily... And I'm not plugging this for wrestling in general.
Mick Foley off the cage?
No, that one was terrifying to me.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Owen Hart.
No, dude, that's
you want wrestling references? I got
that's not fucking funny, man.
I think last time you were on, I made a what is it? What's his face? Burned his house down. Crossface chicken wing.
Bob Back?
No.
No, Chris Benoit.
I made a Benoit joke.
Oh, you did. He wasn't a crossface chicken. We used the Cripple Crossface.
Good.
Yeah, but that damn bro, man, that's wild. I was gonna say Vince McMahon when he tore his quads coming in for the Royal Rumble and tries to come up and he goes through the bottom rope and stands up and pops his quads and immediately has to sit down, but is still trying to sell the angle, so he's sitting on his butt because he can't stand.
Let me ask you this: how much podcasting do you listen to?
Me?
Yes.
I listen to like 2 shows regularly.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the podcast called Behind the Bastard?
No.
Okay. I listened to it on a road trip. Jessica and I, went on a road trip, and we listened to all 6 parts that covered 8 hours of how much of an asshole Vince McMahon is.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's like a 6-part series.
Okay.
It's like 8 hours.
Okay.
And it goes through Vince McMahon's childhood to him getting the business from his dad to the steroid scandal, the Owen Hart death, all of the things that make him a bastard.
Do you remember when he was jacked?
He still is.
I would say he still is kind of.
They get into that on that podcast on Behind the Bastards.
In your 30s, you don't go from being slender and just like, hey, I'm a nerd with a microphone, to all of a sudden like, I'm big Vince McMahon. No, you're on the roids, and that's cool. I guess if that's what you want to do.
I think you got to go back to you got to go back to May. I think is when they released them.
No, he was definitely on the. I mean, he was. I mean, allegations and things, but he was distributing it and encouraging.
Oh, Jesus, all right.
I mean, there's a reason Macho Man was wearing like a bodysuit when he came back, and same thing with the Warrior. Like, he wanted his guys like roided up. He wanted a certain image, and then he tried to portray that image himself. It's what he's like always been about. I mean, that was also at a time when WWF with the wellness policy was terrible.
The wellness policy was terrible.
Yeah, well, no, that's what they tried to do after everything with Kurt Angle and everything with Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. Like, Vince started to realize, like, wait a minute, are wrestlers kind of going through some stuff, like, mentally? Like, maybe I shouldn't have them hopped up on pills and roids and cocaine. Like, maybe I should do something to try and care about them as people. Even though I don't give them fucking insurance and I qualify them as independent contractors and have them on the road 300 days out of the year and yada, yada, yada. It's not an easy life being a wrestler.
No.
They cover that on Behind the Bastard.
I wrote it down. I'm excited.
Guys, I've got bottles of Q42 barbecue sauce to give away for the best answer for sports injury that begrudgingly made you chuckle. At Rockpile Report on Twitter. Best entries. I've got 3. I'll give them away. I'll ship them. It's fine. It's just funny to me. I want to get some outside opinion on this because I have a couple. Like, there are instances throughout history because I'm a bad. You saw the way I laughed at Chris.
You laughed a considerable amount.
I'm a bad person.
I thought you, especially knowing, like, you told me the laughing gas story before we went live. I knew you'd laugh here. I just thought it would be more like a ha, you idiot. Like, you had a hearty, like chuckle from your diaphragm. Like that was from inside. Like
it's real.
It absolutely is.
Real.
You're a real guy. I like it. I respect it.
So, guys,
I feel for Chris.
Here, you know who I feel for? The Jets getting put on Hard Knocks. Can we talk about this for a second? Chris, the Jets are on Hard Knocks, and the Bills have the very first crack at derailing what is a very volatile situation.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
You have a team that does not want to be on... They don't want to be on Hard Knocks. Point blank and period. They actually protested. They did.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They were like, hey, we appealed to the league and said we do not want to participate in this.
Is this not the first time that it's been forced on a team?
No, it's been forced on teams before. The idea is like they ask, like, hey, who wants to volunteer? And if no one does, they just pick a guy.
Didn't that happen to the Jets? No, the Jets. Rex Ryan wanted it the last time.
There were worse football teams than the Jets last year, but the thing is the Jets did themselves a disservice by getting a polarizing quarterback. And now, if you're a league looking to maximize on TV revenue, you're going to sell the hottest ticket. Well, the hottest ticket is what goes on inside that New York Jets locker room this season.
Yeah, you got a quarterback on ayahuasca or whatever the hell
this
it is.
Training camp, whatever this off-season thing is, whatever Hard Knocks is throughout the course of it's just, this is going to be rough.
Do we not like... I like the Jets. Like as a roster, not as a team. I just like them.
I like their roster.
Idea.
In fact, I just did. Guys, if you want to go listen to it, shameless plug. If you want to go listen to my appearance on Play Like a Jet, I was just on his podcast with him talking. In fact, Chris, I actually produced it and recorded it from my basement.
I mean, I don't know.
Chris is unimpressed.
Did Scott tell you to press record on your end?
Damn.
And then I edited it.
Did Scott the simple yes or no question?
Yes.
All right. That's shocking.
So, I was just on Play Like a Jet, and we were talking about the makeup. They were like, we want to hear about our team through somebody else's eyes. And I told them, I love your roster. I just don't know what you guys do with it. Because there's all of these things that you guys on paper should be good, but you've basically built your church on the rock of Aaron Rodgers.
Sounds
Aaron
like
Rodgers is the most unreliable rock that I can think of to make the foundation of your franchise.
I think the rock is the defense, though.
Sure. But that was their rock last year, and where to get him?
I mean, a game or two away from the playoffs with two of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL. So even if Aaron Rodgers is just halfway decent, they're an easy playoff team, and they're a threat for the division title with a defense that matches up well with the Buffalo Bills.
Drew is making it sound like the Jets are LA Knight.
Nice! Yeah!
Yeah. We don't know. We have this thing that everybody loves, but we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And this is what they are. And God, I hate you both. I hate you wrestling junkies so much.
Yeah.
So this is what I look at when I see the Jets. And I look at what the Bills could deliver week one. Like I'm already, because everyone's already postulating about it. And I had that conversation with them about what their team was. And what I kept coming back to is this idea that Aaron Rodgers has been babied his entire career. You go ask Tyler Dunn, friend of the show, used to work the beat in Green Bay.
I think he can take Manish Mehta in a fight.
You were not allowed. I think anybody could take Manish Mehta in a fight. You were at a baseball game tweeting about pictures of kids. Like, I know what ice cream your kid's eating. Come talk to me. He should have been put in a headlock right there and just beaten up. Here's what I'll say. Tyler Dunn floats this idea that you had to basically submit your questions ahead of time for approval because you wouldn't be allowed to bother him with questions that weren't like, oh, well, that's a bad question. You're not allowed to ask Aaron that.
I'm okay with
because the franchise knew that in a small market they had to protect him. There was a lot of Jerry Sullivans. I'm sure there was guys who would want to come into an atmosphere like that and
antagonize a bit.
Antagonize. And so they wouldn't allow that to happen. Now the question is, what happens to you in New York City where there's no safety net? That franchise doesn't have that. They're not going to coddle you because they brought you in to be the guy. You are the reason that they are relevant. You are the reason that they're talked about as potential Super Bowl favorites. Whether they're like 6 rungs down. But they're there. They went from 0 to hero. It's because of Aaron Rodgers. If it doesn't go well, he's going to have to answer for that. He's not accustomed to that. He's not used to that kind of treatment. And it's not like... does that sound like a recipe for success?
I think it's fair to question that. Like, you can... I don't know what the percentages would be, but I think there's like a realistic chance that like the Jets are very good and are a good football team.
But if you get off to a bad start,
but that's what I was
going
to say. I also think there's a realistic chance that they implode or they're a powder keg and it just takes a couple bad performances and Garrett Wilson drops a touchdown pass and Aaron Rodgers says that he sucks and then things go sideways in a hurry. Like, that's the type of player that he is. Like, he's that polarizing piece. And to your point, yeah, like the media probably won't let him skate by if he's playing bad. My thing with it ultimately at the end of the day is, I know he had a not so great last year, especially from an EPA standpoint, but I just think if he's a halfway decent QB, they're a good football team. Like, with that defense and the rest of the roster around him, and if the O-line stays healthy, as long as he's halfway decent.
Riffs.
No, true, but health is always a variable for everyone.
Oh, good, Mekhi Becton. He's your only right tackle worth of shit on the roster.
I mean, you'll see what you get out of Dwayne Brown. Elijah Vera Tucker comes back. They draft Joe Tippmann. We'll see what you get out of Breece Hall.
It's Miami. It's all question marks.
Oh, I think their O-line is better than Miami. Like, that's the bigger problem with Miami is if everybody's healthy for Miami, their O-line still sucks. If everyone's healthy for the Jets, you're like, oh, okay, that's not bad. Like, Miami's O-line is bad. We were talking about it before we went live here again. Like, the worst pass blocking efficiency metrics last year, and they did nothing to address it. Like, they're not getting better. Like, Teron Armstead is only getting older. He's only getting more injury prone. And Connor Williams is mad as a pass protector. Like, they're not good in pass protection. The Jets, if they're healthy, are a fine offensive line. Even if Becton doesn't come back, they're a fine. Are they a top 10 unit? No, but they are fine. And that's all they need to be with Rodgers, what they could have in the run game, and the weapons they have. And good defense.
Fair.
But they could also implode and be...
They could also just blow up.
And they could be 1-5, and Rodgers goes into hiding, and no one hears from him.
Meanwhile, what I know about the Buffalo Bills is that we win. We win division titles. Once, twice, 3 times.
3 times a lady.
Yes! I love this. This is called synergy, folks. For those of you who don't know, that's called synergy.
That's the name of the band who sings that song, right? What the hell just happened here?
Oh, that was an ice beer that just fell off the fridge. Yeah, guys, Chris froze a Utica Club somehow in the freezer.
Oh, it's probably next to the tiny freezer section.
Well, why'd you put it in there?
Because it shouldn't freeze when you put it next to the freezer.
Yeah, well, you did.
We learned something. We all learned something.
We all learned something today. So, underrated, overrated, like, you can argue that maybe the Jets are a little bit overrated, right? Because of these offensive line. Like, if this all implodes, they could end up very poorly. They could be the same team they were last year. If all of this... Injuries in the offensive line, enough of them, like, it doesn't matter who your running backs are.
You could say that for anybody, though.
Sure. Wonderful. But who's proven they can absorb more injuries than anybody else? It's usually the Jets.
Fair point.
And they've already started. They already lost Chuck Clark. That was supposed to be their safety answer.
One of them, yeah.
Lost him. They lose their safety answer. Chris is listening to the radio, driving around, and he texts me, and he goes, I'm listening to WGR. And they're on... Chris, why don't you actually tell it, because, I mean, it was your story.
It was Tuesday morning. I was on my way home from work, and Matt Perino was on with Jeremy White and Joe DiBiase.
You have better hair than him.
I am #1 hater in Buffalo media, whether it's alternative or traditional media.
Is that a challenge to Greg Thompson?
I mean,
his hairline is way too far back.
Oh.
He's cut.
Well,
you don't get to compete anymore.
It's not so much as it's
his
far.
cough is a matter of self-preservation.
It's not
at this
so
point.
much as it is far
Greg,
back.
you're balding. I'll say it. You're balding.
It's not as much as it is far back as it is left to right. Like
we don't speak like Mount Everest, motherfucker.
Who puts a hair part in between your eyes.
He's got tremendous hair, though.
He does have good hair. Not as good as mine. Not as good as Perino. I could do
you guys got to have a hair off. I don't know.
I could do a top five sports media hater in Buffalo.
I will say this. I feel more comfortable mussing the hair of both Perino and Chris at the same time rather than Greg.
Damn.
If I had to muss somebody's hair, I'd rather do it to Perino and him at the same time than Greg.
That is impressive. Back to what's a point here? Yeah, I was listening to GR, the one segment I get to listen to on my way home from work. Apparently, CBS Sports, we haven't found it. There's an article somewhere.
I think it's embedded in there. They talked about it. It's not entitled.
Buffalo Bills, number 3 tight end room in the NFL.
Wait, like out of the entire league?
Yes, CBS Sports rated the Bills number 3.
Wow.
Tight end room in the NFL. Now, as a layperson here, and I hear number 3 tight end room in the NFL, and I'm like, we got Dawson Knox at TE1, and TE2 has never played a down in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Kind of odd that we're 3.
So this is where I like to have these conversations. Also, this is why I like our lads. Mm-hmm. Isn't this cool that I can break this down across every position group in the NFL?
This is very fun. I do like this feature.
Now, Chris, if you just look at the AFC East and we want to talk about position groups, if we were talking about whose tight ends are best, first of all, we know that Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki together in
that's pretty good New England, if somebody knows how to use them.
It's pretty good.
I would say scheme also comes into play as well. Like
sure.
For some people.
And this is the thing. It depends on what you think of Bill O'Brien. First of all, that's the first thing that jumps out to me. Do you think that Bill O'Brien is a good coach when it comes to utilizing tight ends? Because clearly Matt Patricia and Jim Judge were not the guys.
Who was that?
Joe Judge, Jim Judge, doesn't fucking matter. He's not here anymore.
Mike Judge,
Mike Judge, King of the Hill, Mike Judge. And there's just Patriots players running around.
Oh my god! Everybody's just trying to tackle Ramondre Stevenson.
Hey, that's what their training camp must look like. It's Ramondre Stevenson just running around untouched by anybody.
Every player's just like, give it to Ramondre.
So Hunter Henry, average tight end in New England. Not special. He's been average.
He definitely hasn't been as good as he was when he was with the Chargers.
Yeah, because he didn't have a good quarterback throwing him the football. He still doesn't. Mike Gesicki went from...
He's a wide receiver. He's not a tight end. He's a tight end, but he can't block.
He went from a basically wide receiver tight end hybrid.
Yes.
With a bad quarterback to another team where he's a tight end wide receiver hybrid with a bad quarterback.
I like Mike Gesicki for what he is, but I would, if it's between having Hunter Henry and Gesicki versus Knox and Kincaid, I'd rather have Knox and Kincaid. Granted, again though, I respect the point, especially in the bigger picture. Like, I'm always very wary. The first draft that I ever I'm very big into the draft in college football, and the first draft I ever really got into was Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning, and so. Everybody and their mother told me when I was little, like, well, both of them are can't miss, and they're both going to be amazing. And then Ryan Leaf turned out to not be that way. So I don't think there's any guarantees when it comes to rookies, but I'd rather have Knox and Kincaid than I would Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki.
Okay, so then obviously C.J. Uzomah and Tyler Conklin.
I would take Knox and Kincaid.
Guys, you may have heard it on the podcast. I almost just choked on a beer. It almost sprayed out of my nose. It was crazy. I almost sneezed with a beer in my mouth.
You can watch it on YouTube if you want to.
So, in the AFC East, the Bills have the best tight end room. Expand that out to now, Chris, scroll down. Mark Andrews is a preeminent tight end.
I also like Isaiah Likely. Granted, their scheme plays into a role as well. Yes. And then Charlie Kohler is their 3. I would take Baltimore's tight end.
But now they have a different
Baltimore is ranked 2 in this Phantom article.
Likely is a very solid tight end too. And then for me, Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in football.
He's one of the best receiving options, point blank period, in football. Then you go down the list, Irv Smith Jr. and Drew Sample.
I take the Bills tight ends.
I take the Bills. David Njoku and Jordan Akins.
Oh, I do like that room. I would take the Bills tight ends.
Here's one where's the toss-up? The Steelers. Pat Freiermuth and Zach Gentry.
Darnell Washington. Don't forget about
The
him.
Darnell Washington thing is interesting.
Here's a piece, too, because if we're talking about the room, like, we really have to look at it as more than just tight end 1, tight end 2.
Because you're talking about Quentin Morris, who showed last year that he can be an effective run blocker. He can catch passes in space. Guys, next week we are going to be finishing up our training camp preview series with the tight ends, and that's why I'm kind of getting into it with this conversation. Where does this group stack up across NFL tight ends? Because the thing I've heard, Anthony, is this idea that, well, all the Bills have is one tight end and that's all they use. If you look at these depth charts, what most people are probably realizing as they hear us read down them is that nobody has ever heard of half these people. That's because most teams don't utilize tight end 2. Tight end 2 is there. They're a safety valve. They're a blocking tight end. They're a...
no disrespect to what the Bills have had with their previous tight ends these past couple of years, but no offensive coordinator is clamoring to run more 12 personnel so they can get Tommy Sweeney on the field more. And I think I like Morris, and I think he still has some upside. I really like him as a tight end 3, but even as a tight end 2, you're not like, you know what, guys? We got to find a way to get Quentin Morris on the field. That's the conversation you have with Knox and Kincaid.
Exactly. Now you're talking about how do we get both of these playmakers on the field.
It's like having a good cruiserweight division in Nitro in the late 90s, right? You got to find a way to get him some airtime.
We can go down. There are teams with Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram was franchise tagged.
He was.
And at the same time...
But Brenton Strange
is a rookie.
Out of Penn State, so we're in the same boat.
There's nothing after him. Okonkwo is all projection.
Yeah, fair.
He's all projection depending on who's throwing the football. And Trevon Wesco, a former Jet who was cut from the team, is the guy backing him up. So the Titans are out. The Colts are fucked. So are the Houston
I like
Texans.
Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, but who is Tegan Quinn?
Yeah, I'll say that's where you start. Then you're looking at the second, and you're like, eh.
And then, Chris, I almost feel like now, ever since the Darren Waller trade, the AFC West is bereft of tight end talent.
I really like Greg Dulcich. I liked him coming out of UCLA last year, but Manhurts is a... See, when you get to the Broncos, tight end 2 and tight end 3 are almost like opposites of each other. Manhurts is a pure blocking tight end, physical piece. Like that's
Wasn't he on the Bills?
I know he was on the Jags last year.
He was on the Bills for a short period of time.
Oh, he may have been. Good plug. Good pull. And then, having Troutman behind him, he's more of a pure passing or a pass-catching tight end. So then you start to get to that piece, and you become segmented. And
bang! Chris Manhurts, Buffalo Bills.
You did it. Woo! 2015. Show over.
Callback.
Also went to Canisius College.
Oh, Jesus, he's local.
Is he from? He's from the Bronx. Ooh, the BX.
Ooh, I wonder if he was neighbors with Doug Marone.
Let's call Doug and ask. Get him on the line.
If I could call Doug, all I would ask him is, why the fuck do you eat bologna? You do know that's a third-class meat.
It's gross.
All right.
Chiefs tight end room I'd take.
Chiefs tight end room is number 1.
I like Noah Gray and Jody Fortson.
Noah Gray and Jody Fortson. And now, Chris, where did they rank?
1.
1, exactly.
Yes, they should.
Best tight end room.
Oh, man, I wish they had kept Waller.
Yeah, right? Because if they had Austin Hooper and Waller,
or Waller and Mayer.
And
would be
one.
OJ Howard is with the Raiders.
Bills legend.
The fact that he's TE3 tells me that they're not deep. And if Hooper gets hurt or someone goes...
Mayer's legit. And Hooper's legit. I mean...
Is he? He hasn't taken a snap.
Hooper is... against projection. But Hooper's a fine starting. He is a starting caliber tight end. He's not strong. He's not fantastic. He's not putting you over the edge, but he gets the job done in both the pass and the run blocking piece. I mean, Mayer has the potential to be a legitimately good tight end. I was surprised that he fell even as far as he did into the second, but he's, again, in that same, not Austin Hooper mold, but you can do everything with him. He's not a tell. You're not worried about him. He's an above-average receiver and blocker. I think his blocking got a little overrated throughout the draft process, and his pass catching got a little underrated, potentially. But yeah, I think he's a good piece.
So when you look at the AFC as a whole, it makes sense that the Bills are pegged number 3.
Bills are top at the worst. I would say probably top 5 in the room, but yeah, three is fair in the AFC. Wait, they were top 3 in the NFL or the AFC in this CBS article?
NFL.
Okay, let's take a quick, Chris, just scroll it down. Who? Laporta is a starter for the fucking Lions. The Green Bay Packers are starting 2 rookies.
I do like Waller and Bellinger.
All I need to do is go guys, you want to do this, go to ourlads.com and look at the positional depth chart and then go to tight ends and look at every TE2. Who is your TE2?
Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith is cool.
Yeah, is he cool? Because Jonnu Smith seems like the brakes fell off him. Oh wait, he's back with the offensive coordinator who made him relevant.
And he's he's tight end 2.
That's interesting.
Yes.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
Interesting, but I still like my guys because Jonnu Smith showed me his ass.
I think
he showed me his whole ass.
You can have, and I honestly, if you wanted to lean either way, I'm fine with it. I don't have a staunch percent. I'm like, nope, I'm taking the Falcons tight ends, or nope, I'm taking the Bills ones. If you wanted to have a conversation.
Meanwhile, all the quarterbacks in the NFC West suck, so I don't care what their tight end depth chart says. They can all kick rocks. Fucking what?
If the Niners had a little bit better of a tight end too, I would put them ahead. But I mean, Kittle is fantastic.
Sure, you have a star, but what do you have beyond him?
Yeah, Charlie Warner.
Now, what happens if Dalton Kincaid is a star? What's his upside for the season? In your opinion, what is the upside heading into training camp?
400 yards, 2 touchdowns.
And in terms of the depth chart, all you're competing with is a Quentin Morris. He is the de facto TE2.
Yes.
And at the same time, he's not a traditional tight end.
No.
So, he's more, would you say he's more Mike Gesicki than he is Dawson Knox? Or would you say Dawson Knox isn't quite your prototype tight end?
Fair.
He's not Travis Kelce.
No.
He's not a run blocker who also catches elite passes. Like, no one's Travis Kelce. Mm-hmm. Travis Kelce, Gronk, they were in their own categories.
Mm-hmm.
Dawson Knox is a very good NFL tight end.
And he's done a lot to make himself an overall tight end. Run blocker,
he's worked
receiver.
Towards it.
Yes.
And at the same time, he seems to vibe with Josh, and that's the thing that matters. Can he find you in moments that matter? When he threads the needle through traffic to you in the back of the end zone in a de facto playoff game in the snow in a Buffalo December, Chris, while I'm sleeping in my seat.
Or you drop a touchdown pass against the Miami Dolphins in the wild card round. Sorry, devil's advocate.
You're going to have him. But my point is, he goes to him in those moments because he goes, that guy, I have chemistry.
We both like stepbrothers.
He found a way to make himself available to the quarterback, show him that I have physical traits that can power the offense, and he gets open. Quarterback will look to you. Kincaid seems to have the highest ceiling of all this draft's guys who could do that. Now, we have a Quentin Morris if you want to run block. We have a Reggie Gilliam if you want an H-back slice. We have other ancillary options. So I guess the thing is, what is the upshot for Kincaid this year, and what does this tight end room look like to you?
I want to say, to end on that, or to begin on the piece you just ended on, I think he's a better run blocker than he gets credit for.
Okay.
I think you get this stigma of a pass-catching tight end, and the assumption is like, oh, they're soft or they don't run block. I'm not going to sit here and say run blocking is a strength, and he's tremendous, but he's willing, and his technique isn't as bad as it could be for someone who has the receiving chops and the receiving upside that he has. And if you just put him in the league right now, again, you're a rookie, you got to adjust, but he's more than capable against nickel guys, safeties, linebackers. Is he that guy that you want lined up attached to the line of scrimmage as a traditional wide tight end blocking a defensive end? No, not necessarily. But there's also not a lot of tight ends who do that nowadays anyway. So I think he's a better blocker overall than he gets credit for. Half the battle in blocking is just the effort and the sense of urgency. He operates with that. He's more of a shielder than he is a people mover, more of an escorter kind of guy, but he's a better run blocker than he gets credit for. I think his upside overall in this offense, I legitimately think his upside, it's tough for tight ends to break into the league because of what's asked of them mentally. You have to know what your responsibility is in the route distribution. You have to know protections. You have to adjust in a multitude of levels and on a multitude of layers. I think his upside is option number 3 in this passing offense. I think Diggs is going to be the one. 2 can rotate on any given week, but I expect it to be Gabe Davis, maybe even Dawson Knox. But I think there's a legitimate shot where Kincaid and Knox are even for targets, or maybe Kincaid is like a legitimate factor. Maybe not from a volume standpoint, but he's very successful in the red zone or very successful on third down. Like there's a lot of mismatch capability.
The thing I was looking at is our red zone last year. We dropped.
It started off.
Our red zone offense
Dorsey got a little
faded.
better. It got better as the year went on, but it still was not ideal. And to start the year, a lot of it was schematic.
And under Brian Daboll, we were one of the best red zone offenses in football. And it wasn't just Josh powering the ball, and it was you finding good mismatches through the air to get guys open.
Yeah, they were doing it with Tyler Croft in 2020 and things like that.
So the idea is that now you have another piece who's a much better Tyler Croft, who you can throw in there as a mismatch to get those things.
Absolutely. You can literally just...
It's like you have options.
It's crazy.
Plethora of options.
Different dynamics.
Just like how you have the option to get up and leave right now. Because like Raw 98, we're 3 minutes over time.
Wow.
Look at him. Guys, always a consummate professional. Anthony, thank you for coming tonight.
Of course.
Chris,
go fuck yourself.
Fuck your finger. I think it's hilarious. Guys, we got to get out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. That's Anthony Prohaska. And this has been the Rockpile Report.